Hey, Paul.
If
How are you?
good.
Cool. So, selling state of mind. You landed on a good quote. Oh,
I landed.
I think we lost Paul. So I will try to. We lost Paul because of his internet connectivity. So basically, Paul had found a good quote. Oh, there you are. Paul's back.
Yeah, I'm surprised it was my connection because I've got super duper Wi-Fi here.
Yeah, a connection just dropped. I can also see that it's still low. Oh, there we go. I'm back up now.
My connection, because my Wi-Fi is really strong here. It's very strange.
No, it's back up, but it was in the red for a while.
Okay.
All right, cool. So selling state of mind, that's what I was telling people while you dropped off. You saw a quote and that kind of inspired you to talk about selling state of mind.
And I've been thinking about a lot. When you're selling, and then I'll just mention the quote, then I'll tell you how I thought of it before, because it's the easy way to do it. So I'll read the quote to get it straight here. So selling is not selling. Only asking questions is selling.
Right.
So if you're in a state of mind where you're just trying to sell something, and you're talking to a prospect and you think, okay, I just want to sell my software. I just want to do the demo. I just want to sit and close. Like they used to say in the 70s, always be closing. I think what happens when you have that approach is you might get, it might this person needs, but it's the word, that I just used, you're getting lucky. Because really, if you're trying to sell someone something, it first has to be qualified,
Right.
I refuse to believe that everyone you prospect on needs what you're selling. It's just
right.
Well, again, unless you're selling toilet paper.
Yeah.
Toilet paper and water. It's not everyone that needs everything. So when I heard this quote, I said, it's really interesting because I spend a lot of time in my training sessions.
Yeah.
I spend an enormous amount of time talking about and getting people to realize that they don't ask enough questions, that they don't know enough about their prospect or their client before they jump into sales mode.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could give a quick analogy, if you're okay with that, if you walk into a store, I'm going to use a B2C analogy. I love those. So you walk into a store and you're saying, I'm looking for a pair of skis. And the salesperson says, oh, here are the best skis we have, they're great for moguls, they'll last you forever, they're good in powder and whatnot. And then the person's like, well, I don't ski mogul, I don't ski powder.
Mm-hmm.
I ski these terrible hills in Quebec that only have ice on them. Well, you missed out on an opportunity, or maybe the person's like, I just want to rent a pair of skis once. You need to qualify, and to qualify, you need to ask questions, and you really need to be honest with yourself to say, is this really something that this person's going to benefit from? If not, you're a charlatan that's just trying to push something, and I'm not trying to help you guys if you're charlatans. Get off the podcast. But if you're a sincere person who's really trying to bring a benefit to someone, you're not just showing a demo, you're finding out before about what the needs of the person are.
Right.
I mean, you and I we've been talking about this for 2 years,
Uh-huh.
Marketing is getting that message out there, we've talked about that. And then once you're at the sales stage, it's finding out, but it's hard to do because as human beings, we just want to go out there and tell our story, right? I mean, you and I, we've done role plays, we've done a bazillion different things. And people usually, and you become an expert salesperson, people usually fall short because they stop asking questions at a certain point. They start on a good line, they get a few answers, and boom, they jump into their demo. They jump into their sales. You figure, okay, I've got enough. You do have enough because you see all the pieces connecting. But it doesn't mean that your prospect sees the connection yet. So
right.
needs to be very obvious to them that they either need something. If you've asked a lot of questions, you found out they really do need something. And it's even obvious to them, well, oh, it's true, I do have a problem there. You know, what solution do you see?
Right.
So yeah, that acquired that. And what does that mean tactically?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, why do you think salespeople? And I know you're right. We've been talking about this for 2 years now. But why do you think salespeople stop asking questions? Like, I have my couple of theories, but I'd like to get your point of view.
Well, let's get your theories first. Why do you think?
I think there's multiple reasons. I think one is just they're not trained to do it. I think that's probably a big one, right? Like a lot of the sales training that I've seen is just about, product training and stuff like that, or, software training or service training, whatever you're selling, and less about how it fits with the prospect and why a prospect would need this. And so, prospect would be like, I need, an accounting software. Great. We offer an accounting software. What's your main problem? Oh, well, like it's hard to keep track of all the accounts receivable. Great. Like we have a AI component that helps you track everything and predicts who will be late on payments and stuff like that. Let's jump in onto the demo, right? Like that's the extent of a lot of sales trainings that happen is like,
you ask one question, you heard one thing that makes sense to you, like boom, let's go in there.
Exactly.
You're
so
off.
I think, yeah.
Go ahead if you're done.
Yeah, so I think that's a big one. I think, but I think the other one that's, and I know I've thrown that out of there, and I don't think you agreed at the time. We'll see where you're at now. But I think there's also kind of a sales leadership problem where, leaders want full pipelines to be able to go see their boss and say like, look, we have such a full pipeline. We're forecasting this much this month or this quarter. And they don't want their salespeople to turn down deals. They'd rather have them stay in the pipeline. And to a varying extent, right? Some leaders know, some leaders, yes. Some leaders are just not aware of what's going on in the pipeline, except once a quarter when they're pushing their reps to put in all the numbers. But I think what that does is also like, and the last element, which is maybe a mix of both, is that, and we talked about this repeatedly in the past couple of podcasts, especially, salespeople aren't doing what they need to fill their pipeline, and so they're stuck with relatively few deals in the pipeline, and so each deal has a disproportionate amount of importance in terms of them hitting their numbers, and so there's a fear of disqualification almost, where it's like, at least I've done what I had to do, right? I've demoed them. This is what like my KPIs are, like number of demos, number of calls, number of deals in certain stages. I've done all that, so we're good.
Well, you've said a lot of really interesting things. You're right. If you have lack of training or expertise in your product, 2, sales, you're a great salesperson and you don't have great expertise in your product, you might not see the connection. A whole bunch of stuff, but you might not see the opportunity, or you might not be able to fix the challenge because you just don't have an expertise in what you're selling, right? And
right.
Fair. On the other side, if you have huge what you're selling and you don't know how to ask questions, well, then and I call it not to ask questions, because that to me is what sales is really about.
Right.
Then again, you might just be going down a path that is not important to the client, because you want them to acquiesce to what it is that their challenges are.
Right.
You said two things that I really like, and I'll treat the last one first. So you talked about fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think fear is huge. It's huge at 2 levels. The fear of disappointing your sales manager, like you said earlier, but you also have the fear of failure. So you're in there, you know high level that you need to sell X dollars a month prospect. So you're cutting corners. It's sort of speeding to get the next, right? So and you might get a ticket. Getting the ticket isn't asking enough questions. So you're you're thinking about is yourself. And
Right.
fear, like, God, my boss told me they fire me. So you just go into fear mode, and then so the client feels that you're not really thinking about yourself, which you know, and it's something you have to think about, though. You have to be aware of. You know, so you got to, okay, I'm scared, but that doesn't mean anything to my client.
Right.
So that's a big one. Or fear of disappointment of the sales leadership. And the last one I want to treat is sales leadership. You're right, and I don't know how or what I disagree, but you're right that some sales leaders probably say, you know, fill the funnel, keep the stuff in the funnel. You know, we look good to my leaders, whatnot. But those are bad sales leaders. I'll put it out there. If someone's asking you to keep something in the funnel or just fill up your funnel with useless crap, those are bad salespeople. Or uneducated sales leaders. You know, they don't have the right approach to helping you move forward. So that's really interesting. And it's funny that you talk about fear, because I think that is it's unprepared fear, or, you know, fear, or whatever it is. It's just fear of not having success, and then you just go into overdrive mode and you push too hard.
Right.
And I'll equate it to, you know, it's sort of like if I say, hey, Fab, if you convince me to go to this restaurant, you'll get a, you know, $1,000 bonus. And in your head, you go, or $10,000 bonus. I can't pay for this, and that. So you get scared. So you're saying, you know, Paul, come to the restaurant. It's good. You're going to eat there. And I'm going, whoa, what's wrong with this guy? You know, like, why? And why is he insisting so much that I go to this restaurant? Like,
Right.
Whereas, you know, I'm hungry, and you say, hey, Paul, what do you want to eat? Oh, you know, I like Asian food. And you're thinking, oh, I have actually an Asian restaurant. You know, why do I like Asian food? Oh, okay. You know, why are you hungry now? Yeah, I'm really hungry. Well, what would you say if I could instigate your appetite? Let's go to the restaurant. You know, I took a very stupid example, but it boils down to really taking the time, and that's what you just said before, is taking the time to understand your client's needs and forgetting all the bullshit, the stupid sales that's not good at coaching you or helping you, or the fact that you're afraid. You know, if it's a training issue, go get the training. If you don't know what your product does, and it's probably the easiest thing to do, right? I mean, to understand is the first thing you should do. But you also need to understand how to communicate and understand the needs that your client has for the feature, because really the feature is what the person's going to be using, but how that feature helps them achieve their objectives, which is, I'd say 10 or 5% of salespeople really get to the objectives and to the motivation, to why it is that the person's doing business. Not many people get there, because a lot of them get success just by figuring out the features that are going to help their client. Like you said earlier, oh, well, my software will help you do this. Okay, let's just go in and do it. You haven't found out anything about their business. And like I said to a client this week, then you're just a supplier. You're a supplier of a software that does something. That's fine. If you just want to be a supplier and you want to talk to a lot of people, that's all good. But if you really want to be a partner and help them move forward, then you need to find out what it is they're trying to achieve. It often circles back to the same thing, but I just loved that quote, you know, telling is not what is it exactly? I don't want to mess it up. You know, telling is not selling, only asking questions is selling.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think there's another flip side to that. And I mean, I guess it touches on some of the things we talked about, and that's all the support that a salesperson gets, right? Like, I think a lot of salespeople are also distracted. They don't know which questions to ask. They don't know, like, their CRM's not set up to help them ask the right questions. They're you know, they're being measured on the wrong thing, like numbers of meetings they've had, or as opposed to number of qualified opportunity. You know, like there's a lot of operational support as well that play into that, where it's like the salesperson is in front of a not well set up CRM or not set up CRM, and the data's all off and they're measured on the wrong things. I mean, that's just all these little things that are also contributing to this bad behavior. So what you have is you end up with these sales teams that only know about the product, not really what it does for the client, and not able to identify a client that needs this product. They have sales leaders who are pushing to have full pipelines as opposed to quality pipelines, and then they're not supported really in the back end, right? Like we said, like their sales force is all set up all crooked, and it's just they spend like 25 minutes trying to update lead stuff, and it's just, you know what I mean, like they're just spending so much time not doing what they need to do, and they're afraid to ask questions because they know then it's like, oh, this means I'm going to have to set up this in my CRM, and then I have to move this forward, and I forgot to go back. I don't want to call them back and ask them these questions, and so on and so forth. I think that's also something not to be neglected, is kind of the whole operations behind it, all the tech that's happening behind it is not set up to help them succeed.
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, I don't know why the network connection is so bad, because I've got great Wi-Fi here, but it keeps zapping out. But I heard what you said, and if most of it, and I think Fab really hit the nail on the head in that in large enterprises, I mean, in small companies, you can have bogged down under tools. You can get bogged down under bureaucracy that is sort of hidden bureaucracy that is. But you're putting this year.
Well, you cut up quite a bit there.
The can definitely give you the wrong KPIs if you don't set them up properly.
Right. Yeah, and then like sales leaders, like we talked about, end up having to like pull data into Excel and move stuff around in Excel, and then they're frustrated, and they're like, and so they don't want to see bad data. So it's just, there's a lot of, I think that's often, and we haven't talked about it a lot, and maybe we should talk about it a bit more, but in future shows or subsequent shows, but it's that whole operational side to it, which, you know, we've launched CRMs like quick Salesforce or quick like Pipedrive, let's do it, and then it's set up all wrong and it's not helping, and then salespeople are like, why am I even doing this? And they're taking calls on the side, and then, oh yeah, once a month when it's time to enter my numbers, I'll log it in, or, you know, they'll log in the one deals because that's when they get commissions, and you know what I mean, like it's and I think that also distracts them from doing the right things, right? Like they're not asking questions, and the sales leader doesn't know because the deal's not in the system, so they don't know whether the deal was properly, you know, the proper questions were asked or whatnot. And that's, and I'm seeing that more, well, probably not seeing it more and more, it's probably been around for a long time, but as sales teams adapt more and more technology, there's more and more things that are not well set up, or not that they're not well set up, they're probably set up properly, but they're not set up in a way that will, with the salesperson in mind, right? Or with the customer, I guess, ultimately in mind. They're set up, I don't know. They're set up because there's features and that feature is cool, so let's do that, or whatnot, you know?
Well,
but I think
last week we talked about emotion, right? Was it in the podcast we did that, or after the podcast? I can't remember. So what's interesting, and what you're saying, boiled down, was 5 things, boiled down to 3 things. So it's your expertise of the product that you, let's say, software or some kind of machine. Secondly, it's your sales expertise, right? Real sales expertise, you know, and you know, look at the name, you know, asking the right questions. And thirdly, you just said it, the technology and the tools. What often happens with the technology and the tools, and you said it very eloquently, is that they get bogged down in the tool rather than what the tool. It's not that be all end all. Your CRM should very much be a support to what it is you do, either through your sales expertise or your product expertise.
Right.
Those are the two things. Those are the two things that your client. Your tools are just to help you do the right thing. And if the tools are becoming more important than you doing the right thing, well, then that's where things get screwed up.
Yeah, and I think that that's where there's a big, and I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a perception, I think one of you're talking about, like, we talk about asking the right questions and all the skills as a salesperson, but I think these use of tools is an increasingly important set of competencies, because they are there. They are not every company, but most companies have CRMs. A lot of companies have like tools that help them monitor sales conversations. A lot of technology is being deployed, and not understanding how the tool works, how to make it work for you, I feel is maybe a bigger detriment. Because if you're a great salesperson, you're hitting your numbers, but nobody knows what you're doing, you're actually detrimental to the company at that point, right? Like, yeah, like it's easy to say, oh, well, John's hitting his numbers, so, we'll let him do all his bad behavior. But, like Sally, Paul, and Mary, like you guys are doing the right thing, but you're not getting your numbers, so you're not doing it well. And I think I think knowing how to use these tools, knowing how to set up these tools are increasingly important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, full disclosure, Fab is a HubSpot expert, right?
Yeah.
Full disclosure, we work together, we create a sales process. But Fab and I are the first, and I think you agree with me, Fab, but I'll speak for me, but you can agree, I'm pretty sure you do, we've talked offline, is that your CRM is useless if you don't use it properly, right? And the beauty of putting a good sales process in a CRM is that the sales process is ensuring you're using your sales training, and your CRM is sort of a reminder and a tool, a helper to help you go in the right direction.
Right.
But if you think, well, I'm just going to install HubSpot and then I'm going to be a good salesperson.
Yeah.
It's and I'm sure some people do that. Now, HubSpot's a great company. They have a lot of things that they put in there. A lot of other CRM companies are great companies too. And they have videos to help you. And there is some incorporated, generic sales training that you can get. And it's actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. But if you forget that it's a tool, it's an important tool, but it's a tool, and you're using it as the Bible and you're bypassing your expertise. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of all three, right? So if you're very good at using your company's good at the CRM tool, and it has a huge amount of expertise, but they're not good at sales, they're not going to have great success, because they're just going out there doing demos blindly to everyone for whatever reason. Or if they have great sales training, but they don't really understand the expertise of their product, well, then, that's not going to be much better either. Or like you just said before, great expertise, great at sales, but no one knows what anyone's doing. It's like, then that can hurt operations. Then that can hurt the weaker salespeople. Then that can hurt even the strong salesperson, because they're not logging and they're not understanding how they do things, because they nothing is being marked. So I think those three elements need to be, I broke it down to three categories. A lot of other things fall, but it falls into those three, product expertise, sales expertise, and then the proper usage of your tools.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're right. Obviously, that then you can, cut those up into multiple other subcomponents. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, because you're saying it also impacts marketing, it impacts customer service. They don't know what's coming in the pipeline. They don't know how to prepare their teams. They don't know what's being asked, so they kind of ask the same questions all over again when the client's onboarding. They, and marketing just can't identify which campaigns are working, because they can't track the revenue at the end of the day. So there's a lot of impact about not being able to use this. So yes, sales tools are important, but right, the other two are just as important, right? You can have great tools, great setup, but no product knowledge, and that'll hinder you too.
Yeah, or if you have a, you know, in expertise, I put the product. If you've got a clunky product that doesn't work well or doesn't do what it's supposed to do, well, then you're gonna have the same. You can be the best salesperson in the world. Your clients are gonna be disappointed, right? If you're selling a 1980s Hyundai, and I say 1980s because Hyundai is an amazing company now. But if you're selling a pony, 1982, they were crap cars, so it didn't matter how good the CRM was, how good the sales training was. The clients were really disappointed because they had crap, although they didn't cost much back then. But the amazing cars today, I don't have one, but I hear good things. So the point here being that all those three things, those three high level things fit together. But back to the original, because we often go on tangents, that's what we do. To come back to the original point is that if you're just telling, if you're just blurting out demos, you could have the best product in the world. You could have the best CRM situation in the world. If you're just going out there blurting out, telling, you're not going to get as much success as you are if you take the time to understand what it is that you're solving. And we call that consultative sales. Unless it's very much a commodity that you're selling, then there's maybe less understanding. Although there might be there too. I don't want to give a blanket statement, but in most businesses, being consultative, taking the time to understand the reality by asking questions is, it's what will take you away. But people still think, I mean, to this day, I still get a lot of people asking me, hey, could you give us a session on closing? And anyone who's asking me to give them a session on closing, what I remind them of is that, hey, if you're asking me to close, the real problem with closing, if you're having a problem with closing, is because you're not finding out enough about your client.
Right.
You don't know what's important to them. Because if you're really their partner, you don't have to be closing. It's a logical thing because you will qualify or disqualify them. If you really need what you are selling and you've asked all the questions, they're going to agree to it too. Because they're going to say, hey, I'm going fishing with my crew. I need a fishing boat. You're not going to be saying, you need a fishing boat. Well, why don't you need a fishing boat? Well, do you go fishing sometimes? Yeah, but we stand by the shore. Oh, okay. We all like to be in the middle of the ocean and on a barge. Ah, okay. Well, how do you use a barge? We put them up. It's again boils down to just, I don't want to swear, but the fucking asking questions. And it's so frustrating because so many people don't do it.
Right.
I just tell me how to close.
Yeah, I mean, they want to cut corners, and I see it because I work with a lot of sales teams, and a lot of the stuff I get tagged for is like setting up their prospecting processes, and it's the same thing. I'm like, it's better to reach out to 10 people and get 3 to reply back than to reach out to 100 and get nobody to reply back, and they're not, because it's easy to reach out to 100 people with the same message, but it's hard to take the time and review each one and send them something that makes more sense. And this is just what you were saying, right? You want to close. You don't want to do all the steps that are required before that to facilitate your close, right? And I think that's just human beings, lazy, and trying to cut corners.
It is just human beings, and there's also I've often heard this too. You must have heard this too. Oh, it makes me uncomfortable to ask too many questions. What? It makes me uncomfortable to ask too many questions. So you're trying to help the client, and you're just gonna. It's like the doctor saying, oh, I don't want to ask you too many questions. I feel bad. Why don't we just operate on your elbow? It hurts. You just go in and see what's going on. No, if you really want to help someone, the first thing you say, look, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. We're going to dig deep to make sure there's a fit.
Yeah. But
some people, oh no, it's rude. I can't ask the owner of the company if they're doing well. It's like, or do you help them with them? Yeah, I do, but I don't want to ask them that question. Well, get out of sales.
All right, Paul. We've been chatting for half an hour now. We'll let these people go, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.